So it seems that the Spartan isn't the only chunky new Space Marine transport vehicle in town. Let's talk about the new and reimagined Land Raider Proteus. Hello and welcome back to Warspecs Tactics, where today we're talking Space Marines, and yet another new reimagined plastic kit for the Horus Heresy, this time spotted in preview images when a few people were reviewing the new books. This kit, which we have a couple of different images for, is a new plastic version of the Land Raider Proteus, basically Forge World's nostalgia kit. It was released a fair while back, and the idea was basically to hark back to the original release of the plastic Space Marine Land Raiders, the very old ones that you got two in a box for, and came out in Warhammer 40k's infancy. The aesthetic seems to be one that normally divides opinions. I think objectively speaking, a lot of people just aren't really all that a big a fan of the retro look. It's really quite tall and chunky, and I think if Games Workshop released something like that now, and there wasn't any sort of retro appeal for it, I think they'd probably catch a fair bit of flack for it looking a little bit toy-like, and not really all that practical. Still though, for those who are wanting a bit of retro 40k in their lives, and for a fair bit cheaper than the current slightly insane Forge World prices for these, then it looks like it's good news. Not only is the kit coming back, but there's a new option for a front assault ramp. There appears to be new hull las cannon options for it. I've no doubt that there will be a reimagined datasheet for the Heresy armies, and the Land Raider Proteus does have its own unique 40k datasheet already in the Imperial Armour Compendium, which we'll review at the end of the video. I'm sure at some stage Games Workshop will get round to showing these off in one of their previews. The way that these came out were in the Liber Hereticus and Liber Astartes books. There's been quite a few content creators review them in full over the past weekend, and the chap at Guerrilla Miniature Games has made one of the most in-depth reviews of them, going through all the legions in detail, and managed to get about the best pictures out of any of them. I'll link his video down in the video description. All those reviews must have taken a serious amount of effort to make. My guess is that it's a variant build from the Spartan with one of the main sprues swapped out. We'll look at one of the Spartan sprues and how it differs from this in just a second or two. First up though, these are the three models that it's kind of aping. First up on the left we have the initial release of the Land Raider battle tanks of the 41st millennium, a really old plastic kit for the Space Marines there. Really quite a cute little tank, basically about as tall as it is wide. It differs a fair bit from today's Land Raider silhouettes. Perhaps one of the most notable things is that it doesn't have the frontal assault ramp that the new kit has, it instead has a bit of a dozer blade thing instead. Then, as a homage to this long defunct kit, Forge World released these two, the Forge World Land Raider Proteus and the Armoured Proteus, and being Forge World they have vastly increased prices over standard Games Workshop. The Forge World Proteus is £110 or $170, casually around double the price of the standard Land Raider, and the armoured variant is very slightly more than that. The two have some fairly different hull designs for exactly where the guns are mounted, though perhaps the biggest difference between the two is the way that the sponsons are set up. The standard Proteus has some fairly light, unprotected sponsons on the side of the massive armoured tank. The armoured Proteus keeps them a little bit safer with just the barrels protruding. The two do have some very slightly different in-game rules on the current 40k datasheet. I must admit I spent really quite a long time comparing these images to the Forge World ones to try and see as many differences as possible. For the most part the kits seem to have been very faithfully recreated from the originals, but of course this big forward-facing assault ramp is the big giveaway that it is a new plastic kit, as neither of the previous ones had that, so it does mean that you can have a classic looking Land Raider and still have your Marines charging out from the depths of it to meet the enemy head-on in a similar way as you can with the Spartan. It's interesting that the new plastic kit appears to be halfway between the armoured and the regular Proteus versions. Basically the sponson weapons seem to be done in the same style as the standard Proteus, whereas the hull-mounted gun nest appears to be done in the same sort of style as the armoured variant. Again, that's perhaps the easiest way to tell that both of these models are made from the same kit, and aren't just paint jobs of the old resin models. It's pretty interesting as well that the kit also packs 6 las cannons rather than 4. Compared with the Spartan, obviously you've got twin las cannons on the sponsons rather than quad ones, but previously the Proteus could be armed with heavy bolters, heavy flamers, or things like a single multi-melter on the hull. Being able to take a vehicle with no less than 6 devastating anti-tank shots is pretty nice. Generally if you're spamming the same gun, then the tank's just going to be a lot better as its dedicated tank hunting role, rather than trying to multitask. It almost feels a little bit similar to that Terminus Ultra variant Land Raider that they had a little while back. That one only just beating out this one for number of las cannons with 8 rather than 6. I was interested in looking to see whether or not this kit would be a different build on the Spartan, As best I can tell from the sprues though, I think that you wouldn't be able to build this from the Spartan box, and you'd need to basically have a sprue swapped out for it, making me think that this is just going to be an individual model release, as opposed to just a variant build. It's interesting that on the track sections for the Spartan, a lot of them are broken down into fairly modular segments. It makes me wonder whether some of those modular things will remain the same from one kit to the other, and then on the Proteus frame they'll swap them out for things that make a slightly shorter hull. And of course the gun nest and the assault ramp and dozer blade, they'll all need changing as well. I wouldn't be too surprised if the back section of the tank and the top mounted pintle options wind up being very similar between the two kits though. They might just be exactly the same. Finally, I thought it might be worth touching on the 40k datasheet for this thing, as because the Proteus kit has really quite a lot of different options to standard Land Raiders. Forge World did make a datasheet for it in the Imperial Armor Compendium. I guess if you did just equip it with standard twin heavy bolters, then you could just build it as a normal Land Raider, albeit one with a slightly different profile. They're certainly not all that strong in current 40k right now, but at least they got a little bit better post Armor of Contempt, with that 2+ armor save tending to mean a bit more now. The Proteus datasheet is interestingly quite a lot more customizable between the two different options for the kit, and like the Land Raider, it is a heavy support choice for Codex Space Marines, 235 points base, so it is 15 points cheaper than the standard Land Raider. Perhaps one of the biggest downsides is that it's a relic datasheet, so it would cost a command point more than standard, making it perhaps a bit more of a questionable pick. Otherwise, if you just take it in the base configuration, the Proteus comes with a single heavy bolter rather than the twin one of the Land Raider, so it is a bit of a trade-off, 30 points cheaper, but you have to spend an extra CP and you lose one heavy bolter. Otherwise though, there are a few interesting upgrade options. There's a 15-point Explorator Augury array. This one does cut your transport capacity down to just 6 models rather than 10, but it gives you a massive Infiltrator-style deep strike denial bubble where you can't have enemy reserves come in within 12 inches of this, and that's quite a powerful thing on such a big model like this guy is. Otherwise, you could upgrade for heavy armor for plus 15 points. I originally would have said that that would have been well worth it, but now it's only going to matter against AP-4 or better weapons, so Armor of Contempt certainly made it into a bit more of a questionable pick. Otherwise, I do quite like the different hull-mounted weapon options that you can take. You can swap out that standard heavy bolter for a multi-melter for plus 15 points, which also seems like a reasonable deal. That'd be 6 anti-tank shots out of your Land Raider and still cost 15 points less than the standard. Or you could take heavy flamers as well and the standard storm bolters or hunter-killer missiles bolted onto the top. I'm going to guess that they might do a big drop of 40k datasheets for Horus Heresy things at some stage. I guess this guy would need a bit of a rewrite as well if he's going to have the option of being armed with las cannons, which aren't currently a choice that you can make on the Imperial Armor Compendium datasheet. Maybe when they decide to update it, perhaps the assault ramp will do something a bit more as well. To be honest, giving the Land Raider assault ramp something just a little bit more interesting would be good for the Space Marine Codex in general. Overall though, I don't think that the Proteus really competes all that well with the standard Land Raiders given the CP tax. I think it had a bit more of a niche before, but Land Raiders went down in price kind of recently and this guy didn't. When you had a fairly significant points disparity, then it might have been a bit more of a choice. So anyway, look forward to hearing your thoughts and ideas on the new Land Raider model then. Would you be tempted to pick one of these guys up? And how much do you like the rather retro look? If you've enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, where I'll certainly keep the regular videos coming. I do tend to release new ones just about every day. Finally, if you have been enjoying the videos on the channel quite a bit, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page, and you can find that down in the video description. Keeping all the videos coming every day does take a fair amount of time and effort, and if you are enjoying quite a lot, any support is enormously appreciated. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, including seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some really big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.